podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Coming up, a disaster derby for the Scarlets, a season slipping away, but what can we do to fix it? Hugh and Hattie are here to break it all down and maybe even come up with some solutions. Will it be a happy new year? Stick around to find out, and welcome back to the Scrum of the Year. Hello, cheers, and welcome to the Scrum of the Earth podcast, your go-to for news, reviews, great interviews, and so much more, all about the world of rugby. My name is David Lawrence. I'm an American rugby fan who follows the game wherever I can find it, all over the globe. If you'd like to get in touch, I'm easy to find on all your socials, and you can always just drop an email to thescrumoftheearth@gmail.com. Well, we are back again with another special episode. We're welcoming back two of my favorite guests. The sad thing is they're both Scarlet supporters in the URC and have just endured a particularly brutal loss on New Year's Day 2 days ago as we sit down now, losing to the Dragons 28-5 at Rodney Parade. I found this result utterly baffling, and while they can't be particularly happy right now, I couldn't think of any better people to sit down and sort of sift through the wreckage and help explain what we're looking at right now. First, we've got the man who kindly sent me this lovely Bordeaux mascot, and who a few years ago now taught me the meaning of the word stodge the very first time we had a chat. By the way, it's the mind behind HG Rugby. It's Hugh Griffin. Hugh, lovely to have you back. I'm sorry it's not under better circumstances.
I'm not just the mind, I'm the face of HG Rugby. And that Bordeaux mascot is actually from Bordeaux. It was bought from Bordeaux. It's actually been in Bordeaux. Every shop in Bordeaux sells red wine, I can confirm. So that's Leo the Lion. There is a lady lion mascot as well called Leah the Lion that Maz was telling me about. Shout out Maz. And apparently Leo the Lion, she says, you don't want to associate with him. He's a naughty lion apparently. But Leah the Lion is quite pleasant, I'm told. So that's okay.
Surely it's Leo. He's got the accent aigu.
Oh, Leo. Yeah, sorry, not Leo. Leo. Yes, you are quite right, David. As we know, Americans are much better at pronouncing things than British people.
Yes, but we were just discussing.
I'm excited to be here today.
It's a niche audience.
It is a niche audience. I'm quite excited to be here, David. This is my first time being on as inadvertently a producer of your show. Now that you are on Global Gainline on YouTube, it means that I do the thumbnails and titles.
That's true.
So I'm very excited.
Well, also with us today is the amazing Hattie, who's making just her second appearance, though I hope we shatter that record this coming year. You'll know Hattie from the WRRAP podcast, as well as the Women's Rugby Treehouse, which sets me up nicely to complain that y'all haven't been potting for a good while now. Hattie, really nice to see you. Happy New Year, and what gives?
I know. We've just been busy. We're three women with, lives, I think, and dogs. Mostly the dogs. But, we'll get used to it. We'll get around to it at some point, I'm sure. Maybe.
I have no real clue how many staffies Sian actually owns, because there's so many photos of them.
Yeah, so her sister has two. So none live with Sian. Her sister has two. And then I think there's a couple of more in the background. And then Sian also volunteers at an animal shelter. And so that's why there's so many photos of dogs.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
I've just realised that I'm on a podcast with the two people whose stickers I have in my water bottle.
Nice!
Hey. See, this is the difference. You can tell she has a cricket machine and I do not.
I actually had those before I had the cricket machine, but yeah.
There's only two people who have these. Only three people in the world, who have these stickers. There's me, Hattie, and Delgado from Spain.
Yeah, sure, we'll go with that. That they're the only people with those stickers.
Well, I really appreciate you both coming on, knowing it could be potentially painful. My goal is to come up with some positives we can point to, as well as to perhaps, maybe find some practical solutions that might get us out of this dark place. We're doing 3 segments. I'm calling them the futility, the fix, and the future. Hope you're ready to come along. You both good to go?
No.
No, not really.
We'll see. So part 1, the futility. As I said at the top, on the first day of this new year, we had our traditional Welsh derbies. This time, the Scarlets got roundly beaten by the lowly Dragons 28-5. For the Scarlets, this was their lowest score against the Dragons in over 20 years. The last time they were kept to 5 or fewer by the Dragons was in September of 2004. And larger picture, the Scarlets haven't been held to 5 points or fewer in any URC match since a 13-5 loss to Leinster last spring. The Scarlets losing by 23 points ties the Dragons' biggest ever derby winning margin set in 2004 against Cardiff. In the New Year's fixture this year, the Scarlets in discipline was at a record high. They got a yellow card and a 20-minute red card. It was a bit of a horror show even for the neutrals. Hugh, this must have been a terrible way to start a new year for you. What went wrong? When did you realize the wheels were completely coming off? And, what was the low point for you on a very frustrating day?
David, when you've had the low point of losing to the Ospreys 5 days earlier, losing to the Dragons isn't so bad. Losing to the Ospreys is the worst thing imaginable, because not only does your team lose, but a bunch of awful people are happy. But in the first half, we had so much ball and so much territory, and we did not look like we were like the try that we did score came from a driving ball that we essentially dropped, and then Ellis Mee picked it up and stepped someone and went over. Like a good team would have scored at least 2 tries in that first half. So I knew things were going bad. We had several awful attacking sets, which just resulted in even worse kicks by either Joe Hawkins or Gareth Davis. And I knew it was bad. And then I knew it was over when the Dragons went 21-5 up, which was, I think, only on the 60th minute or something. But this Scarlets team isn't scoring 4 tries in a rugby match, and certainly not scoring 3 tries in one half of a rugby match. Absolutely no chance. So I knew it was over. So then it was just 20 minutes of like, okay, how bad is this going to get? And the answer was pretty bad. It wasn't. The defense obviously wasn't great. We've conceded 28 points, but one of those tries did come when we'd basically just given up. It's the attack that was the really upsetting and worrying thing of a completely dreadful and terrible attacking performance with no shape, no plan, no inventiveness, no deception, no skill. That it's one of those where it's not just the loss, it's the manner of the loss, and it's just not acceptable. The Scarlets, I always say this, the Scarlets are a team and a fan base with expectations and standards, not just of the results, but also of how we play rugby. And the team did not meet standards on either front on New Year's Day.
Hattie, you were watching this game as well. Like we said, this kind of beating hasn't happened in 20 years. I know there's been some desire to, quote, rebuild with youth, unquote, is what I've read, but that just doesn't seem like an excuse for what we watched a couple days ago. The stats show the Scarlets are scoring less, conceding more, and picking up more cards than almost any other era in the club's history. Tom Shanklin recently said that there was a, quote, total lack of ambition from the get-go, and he said, that's not the Scarlets' way, unquote. Is the Scarlets' way of attacking rugby actually dead, or are we just watching like a slow-motion identity crisis?
I said this on the radio, and I got absolutely hammered for it by some lovely people from a certain fan base. But it is true that if any club in Wales has an injury in a certain position, the wheels fall off. And in the case of the Scarlets, we've had a couple of injuries throughout the season. Sam Costello has kind of had these recurring injuries, and the wheels fall off. Unfortunately for Sam Costello, he shouldn't be a senior player at the age he is. He should have a more senior 10 above him. In the current Wales setup, I'm assuming it would be somebody who'd be like a player coach kind of situation. I don't know. He deserves to have somebody above him. The rest of the backs deserve to have somebody above him. We're starting to see that a little bit in the forward, like Jake Ball's come in, adding something, but there's really not that much below him either. And it just feels like how can you have rebuild with youth when there's nobody above them to kind of guide them? So you're basically asking a bunch of like 22 to 25-year-olds who have not come through the best setup in any situation, whether you're looking at national setups or the actual team itself, to kind of guide the likes of Carwyn Leggett-Jones coming through, who is he's not a literal child anymore, but he was about 3 weeks ago. How is it fair to have somebody like him come into the URC and play against some of the best teams? It's absolutely bonkers. So you can say you're rebuilding with youth, but even your senior players, in theory, would be junior players in most teams. It's just ridiculous. And in terms of like, is the Scarlets way dead? Well, how are they going to learn it when they're like 12 years old? And they're like they don't have the experience, so how are they?
Their
It's
parents
just
on their knee can tell them about it.
yeah, and like even when you say like, oh, the last time that we were beaten this badly by the Dragons, September 2004, pretty sure that the Celtic Warriors were still alive then. So that's how long ago it was.
Not by September. They'd gone.
No,
They'd
but,
gone
they'd gone by like
but we
June.
were reigning Celtic League champions in September 2004.
Oh,
We did not
nice.
retain the title, but we were reigning champions.
Yeah, the Celtic Warriors were just dead.
Yes.
Yeah, it's how bad it is.
Who were
Half
also
our
based in
team
Bridgend.
weren't even alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hattie, the contrast between the 2017 championship team and today is pretty stark. Does that point to failures within, the organization itself? In 2017, the Scarlets were scoring 28 points per match, giving away just 18 and a half, and today they're averaging just 16.7 and are coughing up 24.6. These numbers include that beating of Glasgow 23-0 at the end of November. I always think stats in rugby can be misleading, but in this case, they seem to tell a true story, right?
Yeah, I mean, comparing us to 2017, it's like night and day. Like you can't actually believe that it's almost the same team, like less than a decade apart. And in terms of the stats this season, I just feel like we've been so up and like we've had like that win was just blew my mind. I didn't quite believe it, and I thought, oh, maybe we've turned a corner now. And then again, like 2-3 injuries and the wheels fall off again. Like I'm sure, I think the other day somebody said like, oh, we're not the sum of our parts. And it's true. If you had every single one of our starting 15 on the pitch at once, it would have been a completely different game. But we cannot put out a starting 15, and you also can't be a rugby team and say like, if we have our starting 15 out every single week and plan for that, because that's never going to happen. You've got to make sure that you have depth, and we have no depth. We have depth in like one or two positions, but is it actually quality depth or is it just bodies? And it does feel like bodies rather than actual options, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, yeah. Hugh, I know you're not impressed with my stats just now, but I feel pretty sure you've got more sad data under your belt. What's a number when you comb through the enumerative breakdown of these 8 games in the URC? What sort of jumps off the page and triggers your panic button?
Well, just quickly, I've just had a quick look at my co-host on the Scarlets pod, Big M's spreadsheeting, and I can confirm that 2 of the Scarlets 23 were not born when we won the Celtic League in 2004. But
Wow.
the stat that sticks out to me now, this is off Opta's Club Rugby Analyst website, which was only updated last on the 23rd of December, but I'm going to assume it's probably still true, having watched us, that the Scarlets are the only team in either the URC, the Premiership, or the top 14. We are the only team that has a less than 50% gain line success rate at 47%. That's
Wow.
really, 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 really bad. And when you consider that our attacking strategy at the moment is just pick and goes, that's all we have is pick and goes, which is mind blowing because last season we had more than that. So
Right.
we've apparently just gotten rid of our, like, we've just gotten rid of any attacking plan that we had. We're also the 3rd most likely team to be double tackled. Out of those 3 leagues, we are the most likely team in the URC to be double tackled, which means
What does that tell you?
it means that we basically have one attacker running at 2 defenders every time. And that's because of the pick and go thing. We have someone like Henry Thomas. I think Henry Thomas is, if I go on players, the most likely player.
I instantly
in the
thought
world
that
to
would be a
double
good
tackled.
stat. Like, wow, every one of your players takes 2 guys to bring down.
Yeah, so Henry Thomas is 89% likely to hit 2 tacklers. Max Douglas is 87% likely to hit 2 tacklers. And yes, you would say that in some cases that is a good stat. And I think that Opta include it with the intent of it being a good stat. But by contrast, the team that is least likely to be double tackled is Union Bordeaux Begler, only 44%. And if you talk about a team that kind of the Scarlets way aspires to be like. It's probably a bit like UBB a bit like how they play, is what you would say the Scarlets way is similar to. So why we're playing this, I have no idea why we are playing in the way that we are with this pick and go strategy. It makes no sense to me. And that's kind of the stat that stands out most to me. The penalties, it's kind of one that gets brought up a lot, and that's been a problem under Dwayne Peel a lot. And I've asked a professional coach about this, and he says that, if the whole team is just giving away penalties all of the time, then that is on the coaches. And apparently I've been told that they are hammering discipline. Whatever they're doing, whatever they're hammering isn't working. They're using some kind of rubber mallets to hammer it instead of a anvil or whatever it needs to be. So it's not working, and it's on the coach. It doesn't matter who the players are. It doesn't matter who the opposition is. Now, I will say that I think it's gotten into referees' heads at this point, especially in the URC, where they go, "Oh, it's the Scarlets. Blow the whistle. Hey, there's Tame Plumtree over there. I'm going to blow my whistle just because I can see him." And there were some calls against the Dragons which were particularly bad. They didn't change the outcome, but there were some crazy penalties given against us. But it's kind of our own fault that we've gotten into that situation. So that kind of really sucks, and I'm really fed up of that at this point now. But it's really the attack that I just can't get my head around what we're trying to do, or why we've gone with this strategy, or why we've abandoned strategies that were working.
Once the refs have decided ahead of time, that just makes it so much harder to get out of that hole. I'm thinking of Homer Simpson. Dig up, stupid. Hugh, from here to the end of February, you've got 3 fixtures. You're home for a shockingly surging Ulster team, followed by trips to Benetton and Edinburgh. If you win all 3 of those matches, though, you're probably feeling like you're right back in this thing, right?
If we win all the rest of our matches for the rest of the time, I'll be delighted. But I don't think that's going to happen. Look, you never know with Edinburgh. You never know with Benetton. Have we got Benetton home or away? Sorry,
I think you go there. You're home for Ulster, and then you're away 2 weeks in a row.
Okay, that's probably not good. So yes, not ideal.
Well, Hattie, what about you? Those 3 games, do you think you can go 3-0? Like, Ulster looked like the toughest opponent out of the 3, but you get them at home. What do you see happening between now and March?
It's at a point where if we randomly won another game like we did the game against Glasgow, where miraculously we do something incredible, then I'm like, oh, thriving, love that for us. However, it would be such a fluke, and it would be a fluke. Like, there is no other way to describe it, because, as you said, our attack is essentially non-existent. And when he brings up, like, with the most likely team to be double tackled, it's because our attack is so obvious. Like, we only have one plan. So it's like, well, we're not giving the opposition any options. They know what we're going to do. It's part of their defence strategy when they're against us. It's just a double tackle, because then it stops our players like Sam Lousy, who love an offload. It stops him from doing that. Like, it's just... we have no plan of attack. Our defence is shockingly bad. And the thing is, we're making the same mistakes every week, and every week they get worse. I think it's one of the only teams I've ever watched where players are actively getting worse week on week instead of any improvement.
Wow.
You're watching players who maybe made a mistake one week, and then the next week they're doing the same thing twice over. Like, it's like, well, what is going on in the training sessions between this game and that game that this is happening? Because I don't understand it. All I can see from my point of view, it's like watching a team implode, and you think there has to be something going on behind the scenes, because it doesn't make any sense otherwise, to me at least.
I love Sam Lousy.
Incredible player.
How are we feeling about him right now? Is he past his sell-by date, though? Like,
he was supposed to play his 100th game for us against the Dragons, but he pulled out in the warm-up. I don't think he's past it. I don't think he's ever he's our only Tongan at the moment, which is upsetting. Normally we like to have a fair few Tongans, but he's the only one. When he's on, he's fantastic. He just needs to not be the guy doing everything.
He's not being given the platform to succeed, I think, is the he's having to do the nuts and bolts instead of doing all the fun stuff.
Mm,
And we want him to
great
be able
point.
to do the fun stuff.
Well, I want to get past this part. That was part one, the futility. Things look pretty damn dark at the moment, but let's see if we can point the nose of this ship upwards a little bit. Part two is called The Fix. It gives us a chance to solve this conundrum before all hope is lost. After the calamitous result on Thursday, head coach Dwayne Peel was remarkably blunt. He didn't hide behind the youth development shield, saying, quote, "There are no excuses for that level of performance. We've fallen off in the last 2 weeks. We had enough on the field to produce some good stuff, and we didn't do it. It's a massive game for us now against Poe to stop the rot," unquote. Ooh, using the word rot. On Scrum 5 recently, the panel and match reporters have claimed that discipline is the heart of the issues the Scarlets face right now. They've said it's no longer just unlucky, it's a trend. The Scarlets have become the most carded team in the URC. Last season, the Scarlets were the most penalized team in the URC with 18 yellow cards. Fans had hoped this was a sort of a
No
quote,
red
teething,
cards, though. Last season, no red cards.
squeaky clean. But of course, in 2026, the trend has worsened into a discipline epidemic that is making winning really, really difficult. Hattie, we've already kind of touched on it. Is this a coaching issue? How does the team come apart like this? What can or did lead to this level of sort of breakdown of discipline?
So I think if you listen to the media, they will pinpoint certainly Tame Plumtree. They will highlight other players and say like this is it's individual problems. It's their fault. I don't think it is. I think he's right. It is a coaching issue because if you look, even if Tame Plumtree's not inside, our back row are still conceding penalty after penalty after penalty. Our second rows are conceding penalties. They're conceding yellow cards. We're having issues in the line out penalty wise. We're having issues with breakdown penalty wise. We're conceding these penalties because we're not a team and we're frustrated. When teams are frustrated, they tend to concede more penalties. And so it's just this, it's just on top. And because we've gained this reputation, which somewhat fairly, to be fair, it's now just escalating. And it is really irritating as a fan when you're listening to commentary and you have the comms team saying things like, oh, well, Tame Plumtree's going to have to watch out for getting a card tonight and things like that. Like, those comments are not helpful. And even if, referees know, oh, well, it's the Scarlets tonight, like, they do their homework. They know that we can see penalties. Even if they go in and think, okay, I'm going to ref fairly, that's still in the back of your mind, I think. And so, yeah, it's a coaching issue to me. And I think it really proves that our actual players are frustrated, but also that the coaching isn't up to scratch, that they're not working on this as an issue.
Well, Hugh, are these pundits right? Like, if you could wave a wand and fix the discipline issue, does everything else start to get better? It sounds like they need to find an attack too.
Well, I think the discipline, as Hattie said, I think the discipline is a symptom, not the disease. And I don't think the players are happy. I don't think that they are bought into the game plan, and I don't think that they're enjoying playing for the Scarlets at the moment. And I think that penalties is a symptom of that. I think there are some players who are taking responsibility and trying to make stuff happen. And this is something that I've got to be in my bonnet about anyway, is that in Wales, I think a lot of fans, particularly like casual fans and a lot of the casual pundits that we are subjected to as well, would rather a player did nothing and therefore did nothing wrong rather than tried to do something to affect the game and it maybe didn't work out. I think there's a lot of players in Wales who fall into the former category who they do nothing and they get praised for not doing anything wrong when they didn't do anything good either. I think the Scarlets, there are players who go, no, I'm going to try and change the game now. And then, like Hattie said, out of frustration, they push it. And they don't have that credit in the bank with a referee who's looking to penalise them anyway. And it just gets worse and worse and it spirals. So I think that the discipline is a symptom rather than the problem at the moment, in my opinion.
Do you know who I...
Oh, so
sorry,
go ahead.
David. I was going to say, what it reminds me of, and especially as we're talking about it, is that the problems are almost identical to Wales women at the moment. In that there is no attack. Players are frustrated. There is a rot in the back, and it just comes out on the pitch as this incredibly highly penalised team. And the media then don't help with what they write, in my opinion.
Well, So I know it's super simplistic, but it's for me a pretty fun game. I think the very first time Hugh and I chatted, we played a game called Money Player Coach, which simply posed the question, if you could have, a massive injection of cash or a huge signing of an internationally recognized superstar player, or you could snipe the best coach in all of rugby, which would be most beneficial to this club? Hugh, you've played this before, so put on you know how the sport is played. You have to put on your weird fingerless gloves and your tinfoil helmet. You've got three options to magically fix the Scarlets. Are you going with money, player, or coach?
Coach. To be honest, and this goes not just for the Scarlets, this goes for all of the regions. I don't think I would trust any of them with money, and that's maybe controversial because
Great point.
of that's probably controversial because of the whole debate about how much money we're spending and things. But I honestly think if you gave any of the regions £1 million, they would blow it all on three former All Blacks who are over 35,
Mm.
And
and
a
that's what
zip
they were spent.
line.
Yeah, and they would go.
Welcome, Aaron Smith, to the Parky Scarlets.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what they would do. Whereas, I genuinely believe, and and maybe my bias is coming out here, but as a fan, I think you've got a right to be biased. I don't think that the squad is the Scarlets' biggest problem. Obviously, as Hattie rightly said, it's not very deep to the point where we have literal children on the bench. And we have a fly half who was literally playing schools rugby in the month of December, who there are plenty of Scarlets fans who would say we should start him in our next Champions Cup game. Um,
No,
legitimately saying that. Um,
Wow.
the So obviously, more good players would be fine. But I genuinely don't. I genuinely believe, and I'm happy to argue, and I'm happy to accept accusations of bias because it's probably true, that our best 15, 23, 25 players is good, talented players who deserve, who are probably in and around test level, in my
Mm.
opinion. The problem is getting them on the pitch. The coaching is a problem. And I was thinking about this the other day. And the thing with Dwayne Peel, because this is the thing that we have to talk about. And any Scarlets fans listen to this will be waiting for us to start talking about Dwayne Peel. So that's the main conversation that we need to have. So if we go back to when Dwayne Peel got the job. So Dwayne Peel, Scarlets head coach, he was a attack coach. So he's a Scarlets legend. It's important to say first. So he was a part of that Celtic League winning squad that we're weirdly talking a lot about. He was a part of that squad. He was a British and Irish Lion, a Welsh international. We had both him and Mike Phillips on the books at one point, and he was getting picked ahead of Mike Phillips at that time. Obviously, Mike Phillips went on to develop a lot after that. Best mates with Stephen Jones, arguably the best fly half Wales has had in the 21st century. So he's a Scarlets legend. And he finished up his playing days and he became an attack coach at Ulster and did quite well. And even now, if you talk to Ulster fans, they'll say, oh yeah, Dwayne Peel, good coach. We liked having him as an attack coach. Under him, our attack was good. He then was approached by Cardiff Blues, as they were at the time, the team formerly known as the Blues. And they had a setup where Dai Young was kind of their director of rugby / head coach. He was kind of double jobbing it. And they recruited Dwayne Peel to be like the guy number one underneath Dai Young. But the Scarlets went, oh, no, you don't. And it was pretty much announced that Dwayne Peel was going to be the coach of Cardiff when suddenly the Scarlets swooped in and said, hang on a second, we're not having you going to Cardiff. You're going to come and coach us instead. And in that moment, I think they would have obviously offered him more money than Cardiff were offering. He would have gone, yeah, this is my dream job to coach the Scarlets. Absolutely, I'll go and do that. And I think they basically went, Dwayne, here's this keys to the castle. Here's the keyless entry to the minivan or whatever it is. You're in charge now. You have complete control. The Scarlets head coach had gone from Wayne Pivac, who I think, yeah, it's easy to be revisionist on Wayne Pivac one way or another. Then we had Brad Moore, who came in, who everybody loved, and he was so good, he was so successful that he got a job as New Zealand attack coach. So he went after less than a season. And then there was like some kind of filler in the job for a little while, and then we had Dwayne Peel come in. And the Scarlets basically said to him, Dwayne, you can be in charge of everything. So Dwayne has gone from being just the attack coach at Ulster to suddenly he's got to put together a backroom staff. He's got to be in charge of recruitment. He's effectively the director of rugby for the off-field stuff. And he's got to coach attack, defense, line out, whatever it is, all of this. And I think it's fair to say, everybody would agree that he wasn't ready. And the Scarlets were willing to give him time to develop and learn the job. And he hasn't done it. From what I understand, during Dwayne Peel's time as head coach of the Scarlets, there's been some very difficult moments with the backroom staff of assistant coaches not getting on, being dysfunctional, not being able to agree on whose role is who. Like, for example, the kind of number two to Dwayne Peel is Jared Payne, who was defense coach at Ulster. So Dwayne Peel brought a load of coaches over from Ulster with him. And Jared Payne was defense coach. Dwayne Peel made him attack coach at the Scarlets. And for the 6 months that he was in that role, our attack was terrible and our defense was terrible. Then still to this day, we don't really know who's in charge of what as the backroom staff at the Scarlets, because Dwayne Peel is head coach / in charge of the attack. Jared Payne is also in charge of attack and defense. Like, literally, if you search what he's in charge of, it says attack and defense that he's in charge of. Then you've got Emir Phillips, who was in charge of anything forwards related, and now is just in charge of scrums and skills, whatever that means. And then you've got Albert van den Berg, who, by the way, I saw on the pitch warming up with the Scarlets. I genuinely think he's the biggest second row that we have. Is our former. He's a former Springbok lock. I think he's bigger than any of our second rows. He's in charge of line out and forwards, but not scrum. It's kind of a mix. But then we don't have a dedicated attack coach. We had Bradley Davis has come in as kind of contact breakdown coach thingy. That doesn't seem to be working. So it's a bit of a mess, and it doesn't feel like that Dwayne Peel. He hasn't shown that he's capable of organizing and putting together a functional backroom team. And he also hasn't shown over I don't even know how long it's been at this point, 4 or 5 years, that he's been able to maintain a level of performance. Under Dwayne Peel, the Scarlets have been characterized by half a good season at a time. Either the first half or the second half of the season has been a complete catastrophe, and then the other half has been great, and we win almost every game, and we go on these incredible runs. But then we lose it again. We go on the summer break, everyone goes on holiday, everyone goes to Ibiza or Dubai or wherever rugby players go. And they come back, and we've forgotten literally everything good that we did last. No, so yes. So that is my answer, is that clearly the coaching is a problem.
That is a pretty compelling case. Hattie, are you going with coach for our money player coach game?
It's my big question is, though, does coach just mean head coach, or does it mean whole new coaching team?
It seems like a big flush button might be in order.
Yeah, because it just needs to reset.
Little quick side note here for the listeners. The Scrum of the Earth is now part of the Global Gainline Network, and we're growing every single week. If you haven't already, please be sure to like and subscribe. If you could tell a friend or two about us, that would be magic. We're closing in on 1,400 subscribers on YouTube, and our network covers all the rugby, be it the women's game, USA Rugby, Irish Rugby, South African Rugby. We've seriously got it all. Do yourself a favor, check it out, and help us spread the word. We are always eternally grateful. So, winding down part two, I just wanted to add that, I'm frankly in a bit of shock from this result. Like, we all saw the Scarlets make 8th place last season and make it to the playoffs this year. I can't speak for you, but I feel pretty sure we all thought they'd be even better this season, while teams like the Ospreys might fall off a little. Hattie, are you feeling shell-shocked by the URC this season? Like, are you becoming more likely to take the dog for a walk than to sit down and intentionally watch these games?
I think as a Welsh rugby fan, you can never really be shocked, because they keep saying, like, Welsh rugby in general has hit rock bottom, and then somehow we dive even further. So however much the Scarlets hurt me, I don't think they can hurt me as much as Welsh rugby in general has hurt me. I was really hopeful going into the season. I think we all were. I thought, oh yeah, we've lost a couple of people, but we've gained, I was kind of looking around and I was thinking, well, Munster have lost all these huge players. The Ospreys might not do so well with their coaching changes, and the Dragons perennially on the bottom. Cardiff have lost their head coach. All of these different things. I thought we're gonna be fine. Our loss is not necessarily any bigger than anyone else's. It's gonna be fine. And then the season started, and it has quite literally been a train wreck from game one. So shocked, no. Hurt a little bit, but not as much as Welsh rugby in general. Yeah, it's just not good, is it?
Hugh, what about you? I feel like you're a loss to Edinburgh away from renouncing the URC entirely and moving to France.
I'm definitely that kind of fan, the worst kind of fan, which when we lose, I'm like, this cursed team, I never want to see them again. And then when we win, I'm like, I will die for these players. I'm very much
that Glasgow win was a big day for you.
I'm very emotional on that front when it comes to my own team. So there's that. I'll never quit. It would be awkward if I did, because at this point, my Scarlets rugby jersey collection is quite substantial. I don't know what I would do with all of them. I think if I put them all on Vinted at the same time, I would crash the market, and that would be a very irresponsible thing to do. So,
as you can tell by my HK rugby jersey, I went on a little bit of a tip on eBay, just getting shirt after shirt after shirt. And what I've learned is they all come from Eastern Europe, and they all smell like cigarettes.
Oh, really? That's not the case on Vinted. If anybody does want Scarlet's stuff, Vinted is an absolute goldmine. Yeah. Like, you would be stunned. I think
it's more than any other team.
I think so. I think it's, and this is something that me and Hattie joked about, and I think we're deep enough into the podcast now to be able to give away things like this. We have quite an old fan base, and I suspect that when one of them snuffs it, all of their stuff goes on Vinted.
Blue season it's rough.
Yeah. Their loss of life is our gain. So that brings us to part 3, the future. Let me try to spin this thing in a positive way. I spent a little time on this. So the Scarlets have an exciting roster and are actively integrating young, promising talent. Boom. In an era where every stadium is named after a bank or an airline, the Scarlets made a deliberate, bold choice in 2008 to never sell the naming rights. They insisted it stay Parky Scarlets to belong to the community. This is what I've read. That doesn't help wins or losses, but it makes me feel proud, and it feels like I believe they have the right philosophy. Boom. None of us are old enough to recall the day the pubs ran dry, the legendary day in 1972 when the Scarlets found victory over the All Blacks 9-3. Again, not a specific help right now in this moment, but it reminds us the Scarlets have a history of achieving the, quote, impossible, unquote, boom. Finally, here we go. The schedule the rest of the way has only one major hiccup in it, the match versus Leinster the day before my son's 10th birthday. Other than that, I feel like you may well win the majority of these games if you can expunge the disciplinary issues. Hugh, I'll start with you. Have I inspired your confidence at least somewhat? Now that we're thinking positively, do you see a path upwards over the second half of the season?
No, you haven't convinced me of anything at all, I'm afraid.
Damn it. I spent time on that.
No, I don't. I think this season is going to be what it is. The thing, I think when you talk about the future, when it comes to Welsh rugby, or specifically the Welsh regions, you kind of have to address the elephant in the room, which is that we have a national union who's intent on shutting down one of the regions. My personal opinion is that I don't think that they will be successful in that attempt. And I think that the people in the boardroom at the WRU are far more likely to go than any of the regions at this moment in time, purely because I don't think that the regions are going to play ball. The WRU plan for getting rid of a region seems to have been, between the four of you, could you just agree who will go?
Can you let us know?
And, all the four regions have gone, no. So that's where that.
And one of you just
stands.
buy Cardiff, and then we don't have to worry about any of this. Yeah, it's basically their plan.
That was basically the plan, and my understanding is that plan has failed. So I think the only way that the Scarlets end up going is through hubris or complacency, in terms of just assuming that they won't be the ones that go, and therefore they don't take the survival efforts seriously. Now, I'm led to believe that that's not what's happening behind the scenes, although that's all just rumor at this point. So I don't think the Scarlets will go. I currently don't think that any of the four will end up going when all is said and done. But I think this season is going to be what it is. I think what the Scarlets have to do, and I think what makes the Scarlets different to some other clubs, is that the Scarlets don't do self-pity. The Scarlets don't do playing the victim. The Scarlets don't do sitting around feeling sorry for ourselves and waiting for someone else to come and fix it. The Scarlets do, this isn't good enough. Everybody knows it's not good enough. What are you going to do about it? And there'll be supporters' evenings where the supporters will turn up in numbers, and the senior management of the Scarlets will be there. And it happened like 2 seasons ago, where the fans stood up in a supporters' evening and just said to, it was either the director of rugby or Dwayne Peel himself, and said, "Is your job on the line? Is your job secure?" Just asked him to his face in a supporters' evening. So because the Scarlets are a rugby club with standards, I expect that one way or another a change will be made. It might be painful, it might be sad, and looking at Dwayne Peel in the coach's box these days is pretty darn sad. One way or another, a change will be made. Whether that change is gonna bring its success, but guess what? They've got us now. We're not going anywhere. We're all in this for the long haul.
Well, thank you for lobbing that one over the plate for me, because Hattie, I think it was you that I first heard this from on the WRRAP. And I think basically you said that Hugh has been saying this contraction is not going to happen. I hadn't heard any of that. From where I sit, and just as somebody who sits and watches the URC, when there's a Welsh club playing, the commentators will mention at some point, and probably multiple points, well, there's a lot hanging over these players, and it's really hard for them right now, knowing that one of their team might not be here. But you kind of hinted that maybe the WRU either can't or won't follow through, and it occurred to me, nothing the WRU have ever said in the past has been a guarantee that they're going to do that thing. In fact, quite the opposite. So I did a little poking around. I learned that there's new investment in the Scarlets, and so a few experts saying you don't invest in something that's going to disappear. There's not an expectation of that. And there's legal things too, like the URC has been told you will have 4 Welsh regions until I think it's 2028. So it's very strange right now that all the commentary is this is happening, but it looks like it might not. Is that actually kind of the ultimate positive that we can get out of this? Like, the regions will continue?
Yeah, I think the difficulty is, and the thing that hurts, is what the WRU are doing at the minute is alienating people, and they're alienating fans, and whatever the outcome is, there's going to be a lot of people that are turned away and that are upset, and that we're going to lose players. We already are. We're not going to have, there could have been kind of investment drives, if you know what I mean. We could have been out there getting new investors, we could have been out there getting new coaches, and this is across all 4 regions. There could have been these big things happening. We could have done much better in the league, apart from Cardiff, who are doing relatively well. The other 3 could have been doing much better, but instead we're stuck under this uncertainty for a year, 2 years. Hopefully it's just the 1 season. But legally, it's quite murky. And as you said, they're contracted with the URC to have 4 teams. So unless they can sell one of the things, and also then I believe the other unions within the URC would have to agree to that sale, which is murky. You've then got the actual companies that each of the regions are. So if they got rid of one of them, well, that's a whole legal process. There are so many steps for this to happen that it's just incredibly unlikely that it will. And obviously, I'm not a legal expert. I'm a historian. I'm looking at it from just like that kind of point of view, and it just doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense. And also I know that the WRU, one, like to call people's bluff, which they've done before. They've done it with the women's team. They also have a tendency of saying this is their plan and then withdrawing that plan. So we've gone through this a few times now under different iterations. Granted, this time is probably seems the most severe, but we did have, the Osprey Scarlets murder a few years ago, which everyone thought was really, really going to happen. This time around, it does seem quite serious. But I just can't see legally how they can wind down one of the regions. And if so, if they do wind down a region, what happens to it? Does it just mean that there's no senior men's team? Or does it mean that the whole thing goes? There's so many unanswered questions that I don't think anybody at the WRU has actually thought about it from more than just this pro team in the URC, but they're only thinking about it from their own point of view, in the same way that, this might be controversial, but when you have the people that are the Anglo-Welsh advocates, they always say we should have teams join the Prem. And they look at it just from a Welsh perspective, and they never think whether or not the English or the Prem would actually want us. And it feels like that's what the WRU are doing with our own teams in the URC, which is like that the URC and the other 4 unions will just agree to it. There's so many moving parts, and none of it's been thought out.
I do think that on that point, the WRU plans, you could have gotten something pretty much. The WRU love putting out a PDF that's like, on one stage, like, got nothing in it, but also at the same stage, like, you look at the number of page counts, it's got 14 pages, and you're like, it should have more pages than that. But then, like, some of the pages are just like
images,
a picture of like Alex Callender with an inspirational quote across it, and that's one of the 14. But it's literally the level of something that you could just go into a pub anywhere in West Wales and ask a guy, like, what do you reckon? And it's what that he would tell you over the next hour and a half is pretty much level with what the WRU put out. And it's been one of those things where it should be enjoyable, but it's been really not, where all the people who have, because there are people in the press and the media and in the fan bases who have been saying for ages that we need to get rid of a region, we need to join the Anglo-Welsh League, we need to do this, we need to do that. And now we're at the WRU. That's why I think that there's the people at the top of the WRU probably thought that what they were doing was populist. I thought they thought that everyone would love what they've suggested, because what they read, on social media, what they read in one of the 2 news outlets that covers Welsh rugby, they go, oh, well, everybody wants this. And then they've like gone to do it, and everyone's pushed back massively. You talk about the silent majority type situation. And now all of the like journalists, columnists, pundits, fans, now that they're faced with the reality of cutting a region, which a lot of them have advocated so enthusiastically for so long, now you see them all slowly start to backtrack and go, oh, hang on a minute, well, then we won't be able to do this, and then there's this like lost revenue that we won't have, and then all these players will go and they'll all go and play in England instead, and then we won't be able to do that. Well, we won't have this anymore, and there's a legal side to it as well. And there's like all the people who have like for ages been saying, like, whenever these discussions come up, going, no, you can't do that, it's much more complicated than that. And they've just been like shouted down. Now we're in the stage of all the like people who have been campaigning for this WRU strategy going, oh, actually, it's much more complicated than that, isn't it? And then you get like people like me who have been saying it's much more complicated than that. And it's not kind of a, haha, it's I told you so. It's a, yes, that doesn't make me feel any better at all. Now that you're realizing that, it makes me feel even worse how stupid you were in the first place to not see that it's much more complicated than that.
I wish they would lean into it. I wish they would do like show sped up videos of boardroom meetings where they're all like poring over a laptop and making PowerPoint slides and stuff with like the Benny Hill music playing in the background. I'd be like, okay, I'm subscribing to this. This I like.
Yeah, but that is working on the assumption that they have boardroom meetings together.
Well, do either of you feel confident saying the contraction is not going to happen, or are you more like, probably not?
I'm on probably not at the moment. If you asked me to put my neck on the line, I'd say it won't happen.
It's a weird thing that the commentators are specifically mentioning it every single game.
But I think the thing to remember is that generally the media, and this is the wider media, whether this be the Six Nations or the URC or European Cup, whatever. They love Welsh misery, whether they be Welsh or not Welsh. So if they can talk about how badly Wales is doing in a certain aspect, they will. So we've just moved on from how bad the national men's team is doing and the fact that our coaching situation is bad and, we can't find a coach and whatever. We just moved that on to the regions. And as soon as it's confirmed what's happening, they'll move on to something else.
Mm.
I'm sure Hattie could give us a very interesting deep dive here on the class war kind of subtext to it all, and the differences between how England are spoken about compared to how Wales are spoken about, and how the Welsh rugby media is actually owned by English media, and Welsh rugby fans consume their rugby information via England and things like that.
Really?
Yeah.
I've
And
never heard of that.
even arguably, when you look at the two teams that get probably called to get cut the most, which would be the Ospreys and the Dragons, the class comes into that as well. It's just very complex.
I've never heard a whiff of that. This could be a whole separate pod. Like I said, my intent was to sort of build from trough to peak. I think the results have been mixed, but we have danced around the use of fresh new players. Hattie, there must be some young players for you that if we three are sitting down in a year or 2 years from now, we're going to be saying, "Ooh, wow, he's really coming along."
Yeah, I mean, I think I really struggle with this because I think Scarlets fans out of any team ever are the most to push some 16-year-old child who is playing for a school somewhere and maybe has played on the weekend for the seconds team of an SRC team or whatever. We love to push somebody young and we're constantly looking for the next best thing, and I think maybe a little bit that's kind of how we've ended up with a very, very young team anyways. We're constantly pushing to say Carwyn Leggett-Jones is obviously the person that everybody wants to talk about and everybody is really excited for. I think we've still got, the even in our current squad, we look at the likes of Eddie James. I think he's got even though he's a big player and he is a big player for the Scarlets and he's coming into the Welsh squad, he's still very, very young. And I think he really, to me, should be a young player to look out for. I don't think he's hit that height yet. He's nowhere near where he will hit. Otherwise, I mean, that to me, that's really it. We've got so many young players, and I just don't want to put pressure on them because there is so much pressure on them from everybody else. But
you don't want to give them the Prendergast treatment?
No, and the thing is, it's almost worse than the Prendergast treatment because the Prendergast treatment is he is the next Jesus, and therefore we will not criticise him, and Leinster fans will go to the ends of the earth for him. Whereas Scarlets fans, you will do something so well, and they will back you when you're a child, and then as soon as you hit 21 and do something a bit wrong, and there's another 16-year-old coming up behind you. You're done. There's somebody new now. We've moved on. And I don't like that.
Hugh, what about you? Any young faces that you're seeing that you're thinking, if we're doing this pod 2 years from now and talking about the huge championship win in the URC for the Scarlets, who was going to be the MVP?
I think Hattie's mentioned him. I think Eddie James. Every time I've watched him in person a few times now, and every time I come away thinking he's ridiculously he's just good at rugby. He makes rugby look easy, which when you're playing for the Scarlets is a real achievement. I think that if he were to leave the Scarlets, I think that a really big team could scout him and go really turn him into a hell of a player. I'd hate to see him go to Gloucester or Sale or some mid-table English team like that. I'd rather he stayed at the Scarlets or went to Bordeaux or something, that kind of thing, because I think his ceiling is so high. I think he, again, I don't mind being accused of being biased. I think he might have the highest ceiling of any back in Wales at the moment. Other than that, when you watch the Scarlets week in, week out, you see how Sam Costello is essentially a light switch. If he's on the field, we play well. If he's not on the field, we don't. It's literally that simple. And I've spoken to people at the Scarlets in the backroom staff and players who freely acknowledge that, say that we only play well with Sam Costello on the pitch.
Wow.
So there's that one. I would like to hope that Max Page continues to come forward. I'd really like to see Archie Hughes, aka the Falcon. I'll tell you a story after we stop recording about him. The he young scrum half, Wales under 20 scrum half. I'd really like to see him come on. You would hope that Dwayne Peel being a line scrum half, like developing scrum halves would be his thing. But no, just picking Gareth Davis for the full 80 seems to be Dwayne Peel's preference. Gareth Davis, who can't be that much younger than Dwayne Peel.
Who also only has like one good game, one bad game, and he like alternates between the two.
Yeah. So I would love it if Archie Hughes was able to come through. I know like Hattie's just kind of mocked this a little bit, but if Carl Windlager-Jones could continue to develop, I would be really excited by that.
But no pressure.
No pressure.
Yes.
In the forwards, I know the Big M would want me to mention Josh Morse, Harry Thomas, who's a loosehead prop and a hooker, to continue to come through. If we could unearth a second row somewhere, that would be class as well. So they're kind of the deep cuts, if you like.
So I almost skipped this. The people who have been saying, no, contraction would be a good thing. The argument I hear all the time is if you have the talent pool we've got with 4 teams and then you make it 3 teams, it just concentrates that talent and means all the teams have more good players. But the reality is, it's not like those players would be required to stay in Wales. They would go to England and they would go to France and they would go, who knows, to Japan, right? Like that. I'm hoping one of you can just poke a final hole in that argument.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same argument that they had when we went from teams to regions and then when we went from 5 regions to 4 regions. It's literally, I was reading the other day about when we went down to when regionalisation happened, and the points are identical to the points about going down to 3. And you just think, well, 20 odd years ago, we were talking about how we'd be bringing players home with regionalisation and how we, would be concentrating our talent with regionalisation. And now we're saying the exact same thing about reducing them.
Yeah,
so to me, it doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. And just on your point about players going abroad, David, so I worked this out the other day. So the Wales team that beat Japan in November, so the starting 15, you had Nicky Smith, currently plays in England. Dewi Lake has just signed to play in England. Archie Griffin plays in England. Daffer Jenkins plays in England. Adam Beard plays in France. Aaron Wainwright is just signed to go and play in England. Alex Mann wore number 7. He plays in Wales, but Jack Morgan was injured. So if Jack Morgan was fit, he'd have played, and he's just signed to go and play in England. Ollie Cracknell, number 8, plays in England. Thomas Williams plays in England. Dan Edwards was number 10, rumoured to be going to Leicester in England. Then you got Josh Adams, currently plays for Cardiff, came through playing for Worcester Warriors in England. Ben Thomas, Welsh through and through, no problem. Max Llewellyn plays in England. Lewis Rees-Zammit plays in England. Blair Murray currently plays for the Scarlets, came through playing for Canterbury in New Zealand. So that's kind of like,
wow.
When you talk about concentrating the talents, it's like, well, the horse is bolted, lads. Like they've already up and left, and it's been happening. Like take Max Llewellyn for example. He signed to go and play for Gloucester when he was still breaking through at Cardiff, when he wasn't first choice to Cardiff. We're not talking about Welsh internationals coming to play for Wales, play exceptionally well, and are scouted by England and then go and play for England. We're talking about senior academy players, or even below that, going to England.
We're talking like 16-year-olds at college, like they're going across the border because the development options are better.
Yeah, like Faye Woboso, the loss of Faye Woboso is still one of the most, from where I sit, like, I can't believe they let that happen.
I'm not that mad about that one, because just wingers, you throw a rock and you hit 10 wingers, so yes, he's great, but it's not a position where we're in desperation. If it had been a second row, like say if it was Mara Itoje, for example, who is Welsh speaks, born and raised in Cardiff, and been taken by England, that would really, really, really sting. But like Lewis Rees-Zammit is an example. Cardiff is his home region. Got scouted for Gloucester as a teenager, came through Gloucester's academy, debut for Gloucester and things. Never played under 20s for Wales. Was approached by England to play for England, and it's just luck that he's a proud Welshman and said, no, I refuse to play for England, and threw his lot in with Wales. That's why he plays for Wales. Other than that, like exactly the same story as Faye Weboso. Where Faye Weboso said, "Yeah, I'll play for England," and that situation is going to happen more and more and more and
But
more.
didn't it come down to him saying, I need to finish getting this degree? And Cardiff was like, no, we're not going to pay for that. You can't do that. And England was like, yeah, we got your program right here.
And not quite. It's
No?
very grey area, and a lot of people like to blame what was the 60 cap rule is now the 25 cap rule, and it doesn't really make any sense. I
Okay.
think a lot of it comes down to because he was already studying in England, and then Wasps went bust, and then he didn't want to travel. And which my point is, well, Welsh women travel across the border for school and club all the time, but sure, whatever.
And for their jobs that they have because the rugby doesn't pay the bills.
So sure, like of course that's the answer, and not probably the very large contract that Exeter offered you, but only if you kept English qualified, which he was because his dad is English. So there's lots of layers to it.
It's a complex sport that we like.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Out of curiosity, so neither of you live in Wales,
No.
right? But if you had said, I want to get to Rodney Parade for this New Year's Day derby, what would that be like? Would it have to be an overnight? Could you get there and back?
No.
Were you tempted this year to go to any of these, holiday derbies? From where I sit, I look forward to them all year. There's something special about it. And somehow I feel like an idiot. I didn't know those games were happening on New Year's Day, and I was like, crap, it's New Year's Day. Guess I'll look at Flow Rugby and see if there's 2 Welsh derbies today. It was such a huge present.
Well, I think you're probably the most excited of anybody of 2 Welsh derbies. So getting to Newport is the most easterly team in Wales, so it's the easiest to get to. So I could do it. Yeah, it's about a 2 hour. It would be about a 2 hour drive, maybe a little bit less to get to Newport for me. And I could do there and back in one day. It's about the same to get to Bristol for me. So that's doable. That's fine. Getting to Llanelli to watch the Scarlets is more difficult because Llanelli is a long way away from everything. It's kind of like you're in the car on the M4 and you're like, we must be there by now. Surely it's the Irish Sea in a minute. Like that, that kind of situation. I went to Newcastle Emlyn last year, and that was a kind of like, this is the furthest away place I've ever been, and I've been to Australia, like type situation. But so that's more difficult. I mean, I could get into a whole kind of tangent here about Friday night games and how they're really great for Cardiff because everyone can just, pop into the Arms Park in between bars and things because it's a high population thing. Whereas Friday night games for Llanelli, when the vast majority of the fans are having to drive to get there, which means that you can't have a drink when you're there and things, Friday night games are less good for Llanelli and things like that. So it's complicated. I don't know. Hattie, I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, it's basically the same. It's a bit different for me because I don't drive, so it would be public transport, which means going through London, which I don't enjoy. Yeah, gross. But yeah, it's actually not like if I wanted to get to Cardiff, it actually wouldn't be that bad. But getting to West Wales would be a horror show, and I would be ringing my cousin saying, I'm staying at your house. Actually, no, she's just had a baby, so I would not. I'd be calling my uncle.
I know several people who have made the drive from where I live in Boston down to Miami. And apparently the worst thing about it is not just how long it is, but you're in the car for 18, 20 hours, and then you get to the border and you're like, Florida, we're here. It's Florida. Oh, wait, I'm 6 to 8 hours away.
Yeah, that's basically my childhood, which is you drive from where I live in Buckinghamshire and then you get to the bridge and you're like, oh, we've made it to Wales. And then you're like, there's actually even further to go. Like you're in for the long haul now, and you're just gonna keep driving and keep driving on the same road.
And you have to realise, David, that once you get into Wales, it's literally like, particularly if you're driving through central Wales, it's literally you get to the English border and your dual carriageway becomes a single like lane B road with no road markings and things. It's like, and we stop spending on the infrastructure now, and then it's like. It's a
the last time my partner and I were down in Texas on a highway, at one point we almost had to pull over. We were laughing so hard because the GPS said, "Stay in one of the left 3 lanes." like one of the left 3 lanes because they had room in Texas and they waited and made everything big enough.
No, and then you get to Wales and you have to drive at 20 miles an hour, which is a whole nother discussion.
We won't get into that.
We won't get into that.
But then you couldn't drive at more than 20 miles per hour before it came in anyway.
Fair.
Because there was always so much bloody traffic. And if there wasn't traffic, it's because there was a farm animal on the road.
Hugh, Hattie, this has been great. I don't know about you, but I'm already feeling a little more positive about the Scarlets. I think that didn't work at all. But I consider it part of my job to sort of create positivity where none exists. I hope I've at least somewhat, put a drop in that pool today. Happy New Year to both of you. I count myself very lucky to be your friend. I really appreciate you taking the time when you know it's going to be a tough chat, especially since, you're probably both rehashing these things all week on other shows as well. Any final thoughts before I mercifully let you go?
The Scarlets are still the best team in the world.
Yeah.
See?
Westerer is besterer.
I almost did a whole side thing about I did as I was doing my quote research unquote. I found stuff about the Sosbans and I came up with a bunch of weird questions about it, but it'll have to maybe we'll save it for another time.
Just on that, our alternate kit is grey this year, and it wasn't as explicitly said, but based on the video that VX3 our kit supply did for it, it appears that the reason that our kit is grey is because that's what colour Sosbans are.
Yeah, but it's got little saucepans on it, isn't it?
Yeah, well, all our kits do.
Yeah, that's true.
Wow. Hattie, Hugh, you're both made of magic. I honestly hope this was a little moment of levity in a tough period. Listeners should be tuned into both at /all your podcasts. I'm a huge fan of all your content, and it tickles me to be able to just hang out and talk. So to all of you across the globe, cheers. Talk to you soon, and be well.